This video is primarily meant for first year MBA students and will help them in the course Quantitative Technique or Business Statistics. I'm going to be explaining things from a very basic level so that somebody who's not studied maths in their 10th or 12th grades or 10th or 12th standard will also be comfortable following these sessions, right? So it's going to be done from a very elementary level so that people with not much of an exposure to maths after 10th standard will also be able to follow along. So this particular video is on measures of central tendency, right? So before we begin, let's create a data set. Okay, so let's keep it simple. Let's have 5 numbers in our data set. Okay, so data set has got 5 numbers. Now the measures of central tendency are median, mean, median and mode, right? So I'll explain what these things are. So mean is nothing but average. We're all familiar with average. Okay, average is the generic term for the word mean, which we use in mathematics, right? So we are used to statements like what's the average price of the chocolates, what's the average rainfall over the last 7 days was 3 centimeters, and the average number of students who appeared for a certain exam, and things like that. So average is something which we are very familiar with. The average age, average weight, and average price. These are terms which you normally use. So very simply and intuitively, if I bought two products, two chocolates priced rupees 10 and rupees 20, what is the average of that? Okay, the average of that is simply 10 plus 20 divided by 2, right? So basically we are adding up the prices and dividing it by the number of quantity, right? So 10 plus 20 is 30, 30 by 2 is 15. So the average price of the two chocolates whose respective prices are 10 and 20 is 15, right? So we use the same thing here, okay, but we use a slightly scientific method. So mean as the average, and we notate it using the letter X bar. Okay, so X with a bar on top of its head. That's the standard mathematical notation. This is how it looks, X bar. Let's try to copy this. Control C, Control V, right? So this is exactly how X bar is written. Okay, so X bar is the summation of all these numbers. Now when any data set is given, normally we are interested in how many observations are there in the data set. In this data set we have 5 observations, right? 3, 6, 1, 3, 5. So the number of observations or the count is mathematically denoted using the letter n. Okay, in our data set, therefore your n is equal to 5. In X bar now is summation of this divided by the number of observations 5. Let's sum it up. 3 plus 6 is 9, 9 plus 1 is 10, 10 plus 3 is 13, 13 plus 5 is 18. So our mean is 18 divided by 5, 3.6. Alright. Now the next measure of central tendency is median. Median is denoted, actually they write it with the letter MD, but because median is not widely used, normally it is not abbreviated, so you can simply write it as median, or you can even write it as MD, right? Now median basically is only a positional value. Let's say here we have 5 observations, right? We are interested in the middle observation. So because we have 5 observations, we are interested in the middle observation. In this case, that happens to be the third observation, right? Not the third observation as it appears here, but third observation when you arrange it in an ascending order, right? So first you have to arrange this data set in an ascending or increasing order. Let's do that here. Which is the smallest number? 1. The next smallest number is 3. Okay, we find the second 3. Then you have a 5, and then there is a 6. Okay, 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 numbers, and this is the data set. Right. So I told you median is the middle number in this. Now, when there are 5 numbers, the middle position is 3, right? And the number corresponding to 3 in this data set happens to be 3. And therefore, your median is 3. Now, because it was just 5 numbers in this data set, it was easy to spot that it was the third number. So what do you do when you have a larger data set? Let's say, what do you do when you have 80 numbers? You can't simply look at it and determine what's the median, right? So therefore, we have a mathematical formula for this, right? It's to determine the median, we find the position of the n plus 1 by 2. Okay, the position of the value which is at n plus 1 by 2, right? So basically in this example we use the formula n is 5, okay, and n plus 1 is 6, and 6 divided by 2, n plus 1 by 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and we look at 3, right, and look at the value corresponding to the third value when the data is arranged in ascending order. All right. So now let's say, for instance, if you had 101 observations, we have to pick out the 51st value when you arrange the whole number in an ascending order, right? That's the concept of median. Now in this instance, because there are 5 numbers, right, you could actually pick out the third value. Imagine, suppose we had, instead of 5 observations, if you had, let's say, 6 observations, what would you do? Okay, let's say instead of 5 observations, we had 6 observations. Let this be the 6th observation. Let it be let's say 9. Okay, so in our new data set we have 6 observations. What would the median now be? Okay, according to our formula, you have to find the position, okay, which is given by n plus 1 by 2. N here is 6, the total number of observations, plus 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7, 7 by 2 is 3.5. Now we don't have a 3.5 in this array, right? In this distribution we don't have a 3.5. So basically what we do is we find the average of those numbers. There is a 3 here, there is a 5 here, so find the average of 3 and 5. So average of 3 and 5 is 3 plus 5 by 2, 4. So the median of this data set, this particular data set here, is 4. Okay, it's interesting to note that when you have an odd number of observations, right, in this instance when there are 5, okay, when they have an odd number of observations, the median will be a number which will be part of the data set, right? In this case 3 is a part of this data set. Okay, the median is part of this data set, whereas if the number of observations happen to be even, if you have even number of observations, then your median will not be part of the data set. This 4 is not part of this data set, right? So basically 4 is average of 3 and 5, which is the middle position. 3.5 is the middle position. Okay, so that is a subtle difference which you need to keep in mind. Now next we look at what is called as mode. Next measure of central tendency is mode. Okay, mode is nothing but the most repeated value in a data set. Okay, let's look at the original data set. So the most repeated value in this data set happens to be 3, because 3 is getting repeated twice. Okay, 3 is getting repeated twice, and therefore 3 is our mode. Okay, so mode we don't normally use denote, it's not denoted by a particular symbol or anything. We simply refer to as mode. And so these are the output. So you have a mean, you have the median, we have the mode. Okay, these three values are called the measures of central tendency.